Morning. Several months ago, we asked the congregation to submit names for those who might be willing to serve as deacons here at Rica. And we had several names turned in, and almost all of them were willing to take on the task and willing to serve. And we have really gotten ourselves assembled a fine group of men to serve as deacons here. Thanks to you and your help and your good prayers. They're willing and eager to serve. And as part of that, we're going to begin a series this morning on the deacons, taken from J.J. Turner's book. And that will be, more about that will be said in a moment, I'm sure. But our first deacon this morning, and we'll have all of our deacons that we can twist their arm to do, will be coming forward to speak to us in the adult class in the coming weeks. But again, we're very thankful for these men and for their dedication and their willingness to serve. Scott, would you come forward and teach us, please?
Morning. We have my father-in-law to blame for this class. The deacons had this book. It's called Deacons Wake Up by Brother J.J. Turner. And my father-in-law thought it was a good idea to teach it, so we wound up doing it the whole congregation. So we can thank Mr. Tommy Morrow for that. It is an excellent book. It says by J.J. Turner. It is listed specifically for deacons, and all the lessons are designed. It's entitled Wake Up. Deacons Wake Up. But what is a deacon? Because if we just say it's applicable to deacons, who's going to pay attention, right? So what is a deacon? Anybody have some places where they might think they've read deacon at? Servant. Don't get ahead of me. Where's it at? Where do we find the word deacon used in Scripture? Is it a scriptural term? Philippians, okay. Anywhere else? About Timothy? And that's pretty much the list of where it's found. It's not used very much. There's only two different forms of it used. If you go back to the Greek, which is 1 Timothy and Philippians were the two places. It means, one form of it means to be an attendant. Am I not loud enough? I can always just talk louder. To be an attendant or to wait upon as a host or a teacher. The other form of it means to run errands, to be an attendant, or more specifically, a waiter at tables. But it all means menial duties. It means to be a servant. Well, what's a Christian? A servant. Applicable to everyone, right? So, one, we're going to hope that we're going to say that all these lessons are applicable to all Christians, and we hope we can all apply them as such. We're also going to try to help guide what is an adult class. So we've got some people that are working on the age of future deacons, or maybe some older people that are trying to get all their ducks in a row to be able to be qualified. So we're going to try to help the future deacons. And we're going to try to give a congregational understanding of the roles and responsibilities that the deaconship faces, which will hopefully help instill unity through the congregation, maybe a little sympathy. J.J. Turner starts off listing what he calls, and it's entirely from him, the 10 Commandments for deacons. According to Mr. Turner, we have, thou shalt meet the qualifications, which comes from 1 Timothy. Thou shalt do all to glorify God, from Ephesians. Thou shalt follow the servant king, Philippians. Thou shalt not be afraid to get thy hands dirty. Thou shalt serve with gladness of heart, from Psalms. Thou shalt do thy work with enthusiasm, from Ecclesiastes. Thou shalt be a team player, from Ephesians. And thou shalt serve out of love motives, from Mark. Thou shalt prepare thyself for the work assigned, and thou shalt be faithful in all things, from Revelations. So this strictly out of the mind of J.J. Turner, but I think, and he does back the vast majority of them up with Scripture. But I think he's got a good idea. To be a servant is probably a good list of rules to follow, right? So in the book entitled Wake Up, the first chapter, which is our lesson today, is a wake-up call. To wake up, you need a what? An alarm. Is anyone else addicted to the snooze button on the alarm? You hear the alarm go off, you're like, maybe later. You just keep hitting it. Yes, me too. You just keep hitting it. You don't want to wake up. You don't want to see that. So the alarm sounds, but you just don't want to face it. Well, it's time to wake up. Let's turn to Luke 12. We're not going to do a whole lot of readings, but the readings we do may be a little involved here. Luke 12, starting at 35. Luke 12, starting at 35. Read with me. Stay dressed for action, and keep your lamps burning, and be like men who are waiting for their master to come home from the wedding feast, so that they may open the door to him at once when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will dress himself for service and have them recline at the table, and he will come and serve them. If he comes in the second watch or in the third and finds them awake, blessed are those servants. But know this, that if the master of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have left his house to be broken into. You must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Peter said, Lord, are you telling this parable for us or for all? And the Lord said, Who then is faithful and a wise manager, whom his master will set over his household, to give them their portion of food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all of his possessions. But if that servant says to himself, My master is delayed in coming, and begins to beat the male and female servants, the master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, at an hour he does not know, and will cut him in pieces and put him with the unfaithful. And that servant who knew his master's will, but did not get ready or act according to his will receive a severe beating. But the one who did not know and did what deserved a beating will receive a light beating. Everyone to whom much was given, of much will him be required, and from him to whom they entrusted much, they will demand the more. It's wake-up time. We just read these servants. You can't... The slothful servant who didn't expect the master to come, the one who was asleep, who started taking advantage of his position, was the one that was in trouble. But all the servants who were working and were ready were blessed. So the alarms are sounding. There's no denying it. We have alarms going off all over the church and in the world. Anybody think of anything, any alarm in the church or from the world we might hear right now? Liberalism of the church. Doctrines that shouldn't be there, which we'll go into maybe some reasons for that in a little while as well. So we see liberalism in the church. That's an alarm going off. Anything else? There's no wrong answers here. Ma'am? Islam. Other religions encroaching, right? Terrorism goes along with that. We have alarms everywhere. The crime rate in the world, abortions. You can point anywhere. In the church, we have congregations dying. We are losing members. We are losing giving. We are losing participation. We're losing in every category that you want to put in the church. We're losing it. We are declining. Would you begin to deny these alarms? Well, if the alarms are going off and you can't deny that they are, do you dare to hit the snooze button? Can we stand to continue to hit that snooze and ignore it? Why do we not want to wake up? Whenever the alarm goes off in the morning, what is the reason that we hit the snooze instead of actually getting up out of our beds?
We don't want to face what's going on.
We don't want to see what's coming. Especially work. That's going to be your most notorious one. But flip that. So if it's something undesirable that you don't want to get up for, you don't want to go to work, you know you have to, you don't want to. Now flip that around. Now, if I'm going to go fishing and that alarm goes off, it's probably going to be the first time the alarm goes off, I'm going to be up. Or if you're going hunting and the alarm goes off, you're going to beat the daylight and you're going to be out in that stand because you got up when that alarm went off. Or if you're going shopping and you got this big sale you got to get to, that alarm goes off, you're going to be up, you're going to be out there so you get shopping, right? Well, what's the difference? You have something you don't want to face or something you are willing to face, something you're happy to face. Well, if an alarm is going off in the church, and plenty of them are, how many times is that going to be a pleasant situation to address? Seldom, if ever. Generally, if an alarm is going off, it's an emergency alarm, because that's about the only time alarms start to go off, right? So, if you don't want to get up and face an unpleasant task from sleeping, if we're sleeping spiritually and in the congregation, are we going to want to get up and face those alarms? No, we're not going to want to. But, after just reading in Luke, do we dare hit the snooze button? Can we afford to hit the snooze button? Because every time we hit that snooze button, how many souls are lost? Every time we hit that snooze button, where is your soul? If you're willing to stand by, or we, I'm not going to say you, that sounds terrible. If we are willing to stand by and hit the snooze button and lose other souls, where does that put our soul? If we just read that the servant who doesn't expect his master's coming, who doesn't do his master's bidding, who doesn't get up and work, if we just read what happens to him, and we are that servant, where are we?
I guess that statement, you snooze and lose, really has a significant impact.
It is. And you flip that with the early bird gets the worm, and the early bird gets the reward, and if you snooze, you lose. And it's especially applicable here in this context. Mr. Turner brings out, I believe 11 steps. He says it's time to wake up. He gives an 11-step tier to wake up. First thing he gives is that you have to acknowledge that you need to wake up, or else you're not going to go anywhere, right? So we have to acknowledge that we are going in the wrong direction and have a need to wake up. I say we're declining in all areas: membership, giving, attendance, evangelism, mission work, and especially our leadership. Even sound teaching is on the decline. We have to acknowledge these things so we can take steps to fix them, right? So that was one. Two, you have to recommit to the eternal vision that God has given the church, which comes from Isaiah 2. If you don't have the eternal vision that God has given for the church, you don't have God's church. So we're going to have to recommit to God's church. You have to, thirdly, close the back door through which the new converts are leaving the church. So we're having trouble getting people in, having trouble keeping people. Well, if we can keep the people that we get in, it's going to be a lot easier to hold our numbers, right? We must nurture and help those babes grow up in Christ from Ephesians and Hebrews, and we must help keep the saved. We must restore the spirit of boldness that existed in the first century church. Think about in Acts, whenever they're first proclaiming the gospel and all these thousands of souls are coming forward. People are being stoned and burned. They kept going. We need that boldness as well. Number 5, we need to believe in the power of the gospel, which is the only message under heaven that can save sinful man. It's nice to have a good time, but a good time's not going to get you to heaven. We need to, 6, get back to the preaching of the Word of God with power, conviction, and enthusiasm. We need to be excited about what we're teaching. If we're not excited about it, how can we expect anyone else to be? We need to lift God up as the center of our worship, which comes from Isaiah 6. We don't get to choose what we want to do. God has set out the guidelines for worship and what He wants done. We don't get to choose that. All we can do is what God said to do. We need to walk by faith and not by sight, knowing that without faith we cannot please God. From Hebrews 11 and 2 Corinthians chapter 5. We need to show that our faith must be larger than the balance on our checkbooks. We need to sacrifice, especially time, talent, and money, for the spreading of the gospel. If we're not willing to give our all for it, how can we expect it to go anywhere? Then we get to these last two, which all that's needing to wake up. These last two are once you're already awake, I believe. Train and prepare men to serve in various leadership capacities in the church. Elders, preachers, deacons, teachers. You can even expand that beyond what Mr. Turner has here. You can put that out to the different roles that we need help with. You can have song leaders. You can have, I think he did say teachers. Song leaders, people to do prayers, get people on the table, get people back in the booth. All these roles, leadership or otherwise, we need help. And we have to prepare and train men to do it. And we need to finally restore the moral purity of the church. Matthew 5:8. If we want the church to be the church, yes, ma'am.
Yes, brother teacher. I want to bring back something that you mentioned earlier about snooze, you lose, or hit a snooze button. That reminds me of something that happened to me last week. I was home for the weekend and come have some bad news. One of the ladies in our church had passed. She had one of her legs amputated. She was a diabetic, and she had one of her legs amputated. And come to find out before I left, she had the second one amputated. And she passed, and I just didn't get the opportunity to go see her before I left Columbus. And I snoozed. I didn't hit the snooze button. It just ran on. And that kind of reminds me, you have to get the opportunity when it's there. Because God ain't promised everybody gonna be there tomorrow. I was gonna say, I'll see you next time I come. That's what I kept saying. I'll see you the next time I come. Well, God didn't promise me that. She passed before I got 10. But she knew the Lord. That's one thing I was satisfied about. She knew the Lord. And I would call her periodically, talk to her about the church and stuff. She was a good sweetheart lady. But good sweethearts and kindness ain't gonna save you. But she was in the church. That's one thing I was thinking. I snoozed and I left. I lost one out. I seen her before she passed.
So there's definite comfort in knowing that she was a member of the church and she was ready to take her reward. But you're right. It does bring out an excellent example of snoozing and losing. This congregation has experienced loss of all ages, from children to adults to elderly. And at every stage and every walk, we've lost people. Excellent example. You never know. And thankfully in this situation and in many of ours, the soul has been ready. But if that soul was not, and we're the ones snoozing and didn't get them ready to go, right? Or encourage them in a way that may have prepared them to go. We can't make them take the step. We can only get them there, right?
And you know what? So one thing I had to come to grips with, it's hard to come to grips with you lose a child. You lose a child, a mother, it's so different when you lose a child. It stays with you, I think, a little more than a child came for you. I had to accept that losing of my daughter, I tell you. It's a hard thing. Every morning you wake up, you just shoot the face.
It's something I hope to never have to experience, and bless your heart, and my prayers are with you for having to experience that, the loss of a child.
I had to realize that's because she was God's child. She was his flower. He picks her when he gets ready.
That's right.
I won't get when he gets ready. The Lord is now.
That is right. He is in control.
I tell myself that all the time. Continuously every day. She's gone with him. I was only alone with her for a little. She was only alone with me for a small while. Just a small while to enjoy pleasures.
Well, and then we have the comfort as well of knowing that we can see them again, right? That's the ultimate comfort there, is knowing we can see them again, and we can be with God in eternal paradise together with them. So while they may be here for a little while, we will get to see them again. So we need to restore the moral purity of the church, and thank you, sister, for that.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you for bringing that up.
The world must be left behind as we move onward in fulfilling the mission of the church. Integrity and biblical values must be returned to the front burner of Christian living and service. It's not just in the congregation when we're here that we need to show enthusiasm. We need to restore the moral purity of this building. It doesn't do any good to help this building. It's nice. We need to keep it up, because if you have a rundown place, nobody's want to come in. It's part of it. But it's not talking about the church building. It's about the church. It's your everyday life. You are the church. We are the church. Every person who has been baptized and is a Christian is a member of the church. And to restore the purity to the church, we must restore that moral purity to ourselves and how we live each and every hour of each and every day. Because we don't know who's looking at us. You never know who's looking at you. And if you let it falter for 1 minute, it can be the difference for that person. So are we awake? Have we taken these steps? I mean, I can say in this congregation that we are definitely training and preparing men to serve in various leadership capacities. We are handling that. Maybe we could do better. I don't know. But we are doing that. I like to think we have most of these covered, but there are certainly some areas. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to make an observation from the passage you looked at a moment ago from Luke 12. I can't help but notice something here. It's really astounding when you think about what Jesus is describing in verse 37. And he gets to the heart of everything we're doing in this series and what you're trying to get across to us today as far as hitting the snooze button or waking up or whatever. In order for us to address that alarm, in order for us to address the need that you've outlined here, we have to roll up our sleeves and dirty our hands. We have to go to work. I mean, and that's, I think of all the things that I've noticed through the years in my preaching, is that getting members of the Church of Christ to do anything, I mean, to be busy in the work of the Lord, is really, I think, the most difficult task. I'm not trying to complain. I'm just stating an obvious fact. You know, in Matthew 20, for example, the disciples were arguing among themselves, who's greatest among us? And Jesus' response to that was, the Son of Man did not come to be ministered to, but to minister and to give his life, a ransom for many. And here in this passage you referenced a moment ago, we might just read right over that. If we're not paying attention, we're missing something that's really mind-boggling. But he said, blessed are those servants whom the master, when he comes, will find watching. Assuredly, I say to you, he will gird himself and have them sit down to eat, and will come and serve them. I mean, the scene in John 13 comes to mind. I mean, he girded himself with a towel. He washed their feet. He's here contemplating, I believe, what's going to happen for all eternity. People have often asked, well, what's it going to be like in heaven? We're going to just stand around singing all the time, you know, praising God all the time? Well, I'm sure that's a lot of it, but when you look at what he's revealing here, he's suggesting that when we're faithful Christians, for all eternity, he's going to be serving us. We're sitting down at his table. He's feeding us and ministering to us. He's our master. We're his followers. How can we say we're Christians if we won't do anything, if we won't get off of the pew and put it into action? And you can list any number of things. I mean, we could go on all day. We beg and we plead and we prod and we scream and we holler and we pitch a fit. And at the end of the day, our denominational friends are beating the socks off of us. And the reason, not because they have a superior message, they don't. They just work. I know this for a fact. I spent a lot of time with them. They are busy constantly. I'm not talking about the preachers. Preachers are some of the laziest people in these denominational churches. It's the members that are working.
Right.
And they're working their heads off. And we scratch our head and say, well, how are they growing so fast? You're doing so because they're busy.
Well,
And why are we languishing? Because we're not. And it's like, when we think about our deacons, and I appreciate what you're saying, this is the message we've just got to get through our hearts and minds is we all need to get up, roll up our sleeves, and go to work. And this is an urgent business. It's not, the king's goodness requires haste. It doesn't. You can't sit there and say, well, I'll get to it one day. I mean, that day is now. We don't have another day.
we don't know when his day will be, and we can't wait until then, right? Well, Christians are servants. How can you serve? How can you be a servant if you don't serve? So if you're not serving, you're not a servant. And if you're not a servant, you don't have a place. No man can serve two masters, right? Which we're getting there. And this book, this is the intro lesson to the book. So this is a general call to wake up. And each lesson after this will be more specific in a certain area. But excellent point.
God,
Yes, sir.
to be a servant, you have to put it into your head that you're looking out for others instead of having others look out for you. So your mindset has to be of that quality to begin with. And then once you get that, the rest comes easy. Because you're out there looking to see what you can do. And you're happy with when they come and say thank you. Even if they don't say thank you, you're happy at being able to help others. And that's where a servant's life starts.
Right. The heart starts in the heart.
Exactly.
You have to have the heart of a servant before you can be a servant, because
Let this mind be in you.
he was also in Christ Jesus.
You know, Jesus talks about those beatitudes. when we serve, we need to understand that that's a blessing. I mean, that does just make us happy that we're able to do something good for someone else.
It's more blessed to give than receive, right? What more precious thing can we give than ourselves? And who better to give it to than God in Christ? Right? Excellent point, sir. So, are we awake? Have we followed these steps? Well, then it's time to look in the mirror. If we look in the mirror, we have to say, well, are all these applicable to me? Well, yes. We just said that deacons are servants, Christians are servants. So we're all servants. Just because we have a title and we're a special category of servant, we're all still servants and we're serving together. So yes, they are applicable to all. All servants must be concerned with the issues facing the church. All servants in the household had to take care of the household, right? If you don't take care of your household and the household falls, where are you? So when we're looking in the mirror, when I say deacon, use your experience here, use your experience with other congregations, or just in general. Don't say it out loud. We might not want to hear it. We probably don't want to hear it. When you hear deacon, what's the first thing you think of? Do you think of someone bestowed honor that's doing their job well, that you're proud to see and glad to see serving with you? Or do you say, oh, it's just that guy. He's got a fancy title, but it really never gets done. The image that conjures in your head is the image of a laughing stock, or is it the image of an honorable servant of God? Honestly, be honest with yourself. What image appears? I'm afraid, as is J.J. Turner, that the image is leaning towards the side of the laughing stock, especially in many congregations, if it's not that problem here with all of us. But why? Why have they become a laughing stock? He proposes 3 reasons that may cause this. The deacons if they are a laughing stock, they're most likely failing in their duties. Why are they failing in their duties? Do they lack the proper training to perform those duties? Or are they not qualified in the first place to perform those duties? If we wake up and can address these points, then we can bring honor back to the position of deacon and servants in general. So it's time to wake up and serve. We must pick up the towel, right? And get to work, as we were just talking about Jesus did, our ultimate example. Too many people are throwing down the towel in the time we need to be picking up the towel and getting to work serving others. There's plenty of work to be done. Yes, sir.
With plenty of work to be done, we have people that want to do it. They have woken up and they want to do it. But what you might be alluding to is that they get overwhelmed because they don't get any help, or people ignore what they're doing.
And we are getting there. I promise we are. That's next. You're always one step ahead, brother. So there's always something to do, especially, widows. We have just those in need from Galatians and James. Our areas that we just divided out between our deacons. We have 10 deacons now. And did you have something to say, brother?
Well, I didn't want to miss the train of thought. You think about the fact that a lot of people say, if I just make it happen, if I get in there and you be the janitor, something, so I can still be in there, I take the lowest job, whatever, to be in the heaven. But there's a chance to do that here. You could do the janitor, or you could be the deacon and stuff that will do the menial task. And, in your mindset, that will help you in the long run because you're helping others. Not saying that that's a goal to go for, in your life, to say, well, as long as I get in heaven, I can be that, janitor or whatever, just, as long as I get there. Of course, I have a higher goal than that, but I'm just saying, now's the time. You can be that janitor if you want to be that janitor, and the servant part of it. And I don't mean just janitorial work,
Right.
just in general, saying that's time to serve. And
Right.
That's, one of the
Well,
things we look.
if I could be a janitor in heaven, then I'll still be in heaven. That may not be what my role that I want to do, but just get me in the doors, brother. Just get me through the gates. And if that's what it takes for me to get there, and that's the only position available, let's rock and roll. I'll be a janitor. And where's God's kingdom right now? Where is it? Us. we are the kingdom. If you want to be a janitor in the kingdom of heaven, where do you need to do it?
Right here.
If it's the only slot available for work, and you're a servant and you want to work, and that's the only thing that we have to do, what needs done and what do you need to do, right? That's the wake-up call. That's it right there. Whatever the task, whatever slot you have open, I'm a servant. Here am I, Lord. Send me. I'm a servant. To be a servant, I have to serve, and I want to serve in your kingdom. I just want to get through the gates. I need to serve in your kingdom. That is the wake-up call. Excellent point, because that is the core of this lesson. It doesn't matter if you can, shoot for the moon. Get whatever you can, whatever position or whatever you can. But at the end of the day, if that janitor is the one that gets you in the door, then that humble servant, that lowly task, that menial duty that it is to be a servant, if that gets you in the door, do it, brothers and sisters, because it got you in. Our deacon, we have 10 deacons that we have just, with the old and new and everything coming in together, we have 10 areas that we've categorized things into. I'll give a rundown of that very quickly. We have the youth, we have the building, we have widows, benevolence, Bible class, outreach, worship, fellowship, finances, and technology. Each of these categories has a deacon or two over it, and we are mixed in between and such. But and we'll be briefing the congregation. We're going to get up and tell what each role each deacon has, so everyone knows who to go to if they have a problem or need something in a certain area. And we'll also be, along that vein of thought, we'll be passing out another, survey is a strong word, enlistment form, but what you're willing to do. We've done it before, but it will be a very similar sheet. We need help. We cannot perform these tasks alone, and we are not the only servants. You have an obligation as servants to serve as well. So to fulfill that obligation for you and to help us serve as well, if you will, whenever we finally get these sheets put together to do, you can write down what you're interested in, what you're willing to do, and that way we can give it to the deacon over that. And whenever that deacon needs help, say you're interested in building maintenance or van maintenance. I know Brother Stubblefield is over the van maintenance specifically. Say he needs help. Say, hey, I forgot my tire iron, brother. Can you bring me a tire iron up here? Yeah, you can bring it. He knows who to call then, right? So we're just trying to get that, which will allow y'all to serve and help the congregation as a unit come closer together. But we will be doing that, and we do desperately need help. If you are able to help in any area when those forms come around, we do ask that you please make use of them and answer the wake-up call. John 12:26. Does anybody have that for me? John 12:26.
If any man serve me, let him follow me. Where I am, that shall also my servant be. If any man serve me, him will my Father honor.
Anyone serves me, the Father will honor him. We need help. Can't do it alone. We all have to be good servants, right? So what has happened to God's servants? Where have they gone? We have a shortage of servants everywhere, as we've been talking about throughout this lesson. Especially in leadership, not just leadership, but specifically in leadership, we have people who may be, I'm not saying in this congregation, I'm saying as in the church as a whole. We may have people who are in name only leaders. I said, why are those deacons a laughingstock, right? Well, they have the title, they have the job assignments, they have the job description, but they've gone on vacation. They've thrown up their hands because they're in despair, because they can't get any help. They're overwhelmed, they're burnt out. The times when it gets hard to hold that towel and do the work, they're throwing it down, right? He, being Mr. Turner, Brother Turner gives us a list of reasons he contemplates we may have lost people to. He says they may have gone to positive thinking rallies, which is, I don't know if y'all are familiar in the workplace. These positive thinking rallies are these sensitivity trainings, or what they're calling them. Any PC word you can get, they're changing your mind about what is okay. Are we giving up and just being like, well, it's okay, we need to work in this area, but really it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. It's dangerous, brothers and sisters. It's very dangerous. I mean, how far are you going to go with it? They have gone to cross-training classes to change careers. What higher career would you aspire to? People are giving up on their career and leaving out of servant, right? They have decided to do their own thing. If you're doing your own thing, it's going to be difficult to accomplish the Lord's work. Maybe you're doing the Lord's work, but you're not working with the other servants to accomplish it. Admirable though it may be, you will never accomplish alone what we can together. And you have to wonder about the motives as well. I mean, just because you're doing your own thing doesn't mean you have ulterior motives, but it's possible. Are you looking for the glory for yourself or God? You have to be careful there as well. They have moved into the corner office with a view. They're just trying to move up the ladder, take it easy. Yes, ma'am.
Don't you think all of this encompasses the fact that the church is not doing its job training their leaders, training its leaders?
I think it points definitely to the church may not be doing their job, both in training the leaders and then supporting those leaders. Because it doesn't matter how good of a man you get into the position. There will come a point when that man becomes burnt out if he lacks support of the congregation. And every man is different. Every man can bear a different weight for a different amount of time. But there will come a time when that man is burnt out if he lacks support. However, if he has the support of the congregation, he may never get burnt out. He should never get burnt out if he has all that help and all that aid. Did you have one, brother? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, a lot of times, they're trying to get back into the worldly section, to try to implement the world into the Church of Christ. If the Church of Christ is not going to have music, you find a lot of churches getting back into getting things and music into the worldly side.
Right. Which is what we're looking at with the positive thinking rallies or the cross-training to the careers. That's where we're going with that. So you have to be careful of allowing that stuff in. That's why it's dangerous. Excellent point. They have stepped on the neck of the competition, or they are fighting to stay on top. Brothers and sisters, no. The scribes and Pharisees did that too. And they killed Jesus and many others for it. If we are fighting to stay on top and stepping on the neck of the competition and discouraging those who would come up and help because we want to maintain our positions, that's not a servant, brothers and sisters. Or if it is, it's that servant that's beating the male and female servants. When that master comes back, what will he do with you? From Luke. That is extraordinarily detrimental behavior to have in the congregation. Because if you're stepping on the neck of the competition and you're not allowing them to flourish and work, they will either stop working entirely or they'll find somewhere else to work.
It's kind of like the story of the prodigal son. He comes back, a lot of things are done for him all at once. And the oldest brother that was still here, the first thing he said, "Where's my part? What have you done for me?"
Because you've been here the whole time.
It's a mindset, and that's what's dangerous, because we got to always be on top of our mind so we know where it's set.
If we are servants and we are serving each other, as our example has been, you can't possibly have this mentality. You can see why it's such an extraordinarily detrimental mentality anyway, but you should not have that mentality. You shouldn't be striving to fight and be on top if you're serving each other. If I'm serving the person I'm stepping on the neck of, I won't be stepping on their neck. I'll be washing their feet. I'll be at the other end of them. I won't have the opportunity, right? That goes right along with doing your own thing as well. I mean, if you're doing your own thing and you start doing this, all these behaviors go fluidly with each other. I think I'm running out of time, so we're going to cover the last fairly quickly, and then I'll get back to the one that I want to emphasize. They have changed their priorities and interest, which, as part of the wake-up call, we said must be, our first priority must be God, right? And the heaven and restoring the moral purity. They have quit because of discouragement. Like I said, every man has a breaking point. Every man, woman, and child. And if without support, you will reach that breaking point. We need the help of the congregation. They're hiding behind their comfort zones. If a job needs done, even if it's the janitor job, and you're not comfortable doing the janitor, are you going to get in there and serve in the kingdom, or are you going to just hang out outside of the kingdom? Sometimes you have to be outside of your comfort zones. When we pass those sheets around, it's fine to sign up for your comfort zone. We have a lot of different people. That's the beauty of the diversity. Everyone's comfortable with something different. But if the need arises, as servants, we ought to be ready to stand up and get out of our comfort zones, perhaps. And lastly, the last two that I'm going to combine, where'd it go? They have retired from service, or they have bought a getaway cottage. They are on vacation, or they have retired. When you retire, typically, who are you? You've worked long enough to be able to reach retirement, right? How many times have you heard, yes, sir?
There's a retirement we all will enjoy, but it may not be right here.
It's true. Our benefits are out of this world, right?
There wouldn't be no reason to wake up. There wasn't time to rest.
Right?
There wouldn't be no alarm. We wouldn't have to be woken up. So there is rest there. But we got to recognize, who we're going to get the rest at. And, anticipate so we can be tired to get the rest.
You have to fight the good fight and run the race with endurance, right? How many times have you heard people say, well, I've done this, let them do it. I'm done doing that. I'm just going to pass this towel along. Now, with some jobs, once you get to certain, you may need to change your job. You may not be physically able to perform a task, or mentally able because you're burnt out on a task. It is fine to change tasks. Do not misunderstand me, please. That's not what I'm saying at all. Work in the Lord's church. That's what I'm saying. And when I say that they have retired from service, I'm not saying you've changed your job because you're burnt out on it. I see you, sister, but that's the problem. But think about Titus 2, the example to the youth. What are the older women and men instructed to do in Titus 2? Teach them, right? We were going to read Titus 2. I believe we are definitely out of time for that. But instruct the younger. Both male and female are instructed to. And how can you instruct the younger one and show them the acts and works of a servant if you've thrown in the towel and retired from service? You have to you have to run the race of endurance, right? And if you throw in the towel, you have not endured till the end. Thank you very much for your time. Any questions or comments in the last 30 seconds before the kids get here?